Good morning and welcome back to this Force Insight sharing event, which is our key findings from a 4.5-year project with the European Commission, Cities Cooperating for Circular Economy, or FORCE, where we are 4 cities who have worked together in 16 partnerships on 4 materials, and we have a number of findings for you. So this morning we are going to have some more presentations on some more materials, and yesterday we had the discussions on plastics and on biowaste and surplus food, and what we saw yesterday is that we can see that there is a huge citizen engagement in participating in various schemes developed and set up by the cities. We see that there is a huge interest in citizens to participate, and there's also a need for cities to inform the citizens about what actually happens to their waste. We also see that all the results that we have achieved in this project, we have achieved those as a part of our networking, as a part of these value chain-based partnerships that we have set up, 16 in total, 4 for each material. And we see that for business models, we see that there are some economic aspects that ought to be tackled, because at the moment we see that there is a gap between what should happen, you can say, from a circular economy principle or circular economy point of view, but somehow the economic is not yet there. The circular solutions are not feasible from an economic point of view. So somehow there needs to be an alignment between the economic feasibility and the environmental objectives. We also see that there is still a need for further investment and further innovation in some of these innovative solutions that we've looked into, specifically regarding the development of acids and carbohydrates from biowaste and wood, for example. And on policy and governance, we see that there's also a need for us as a project. We have some findings. We ought to inform the policymakers, both nationally and in Europe, about these findings, so that they can adjust and adapt the legislation, regulation, so that we can promote circular economy, so that we can foster, so that legislation can foster circularity much more. And with these words, I would like to hand over the floor to our moderator, Savas Verdis, from the London School of Economics. So, Savas, I think the floor is all yours. Here you are.
Thank you very much, Mette, and thank you very much for this excellent summary. What I would like to do is just add a couple more reflections on yesterday's proceedings. I hope that some of you were able to join us yesterday as well, and we also had a couple of presentations earlier in the morning before we went into the material streams of the food and bio waste and the domestic plastics. We had a presentation by Luis Coffino from Eurocities that spoke about the potential or the opportunity of making the most of this specific crisis to push forward circularity. And she gave some very good examples beyond our 4-city network. The city of Ljubljana, for example, where only 5% of waste actually ends up in landfill. And this whole push of the right to repair. A great quote from yesterday: more screws, less glue. although I don't think we'll find the same mantra holding for wood when we hear from them later and their dislike of screws. The other thing that Louis said, which I thought was very, very interesting, was the reference to the donut model of Kate Raworth. And I think this has a lot of reverberations with what the Force Partnership has been doing in two fronts. The first, that it actually gives you a different dimension of measuring economic success. The fact that the donut model combines social as well as environmental outcomes gives a very different view of success than our traditional measures like GDP. And if you think about GDP, it's probably one of the best ways of propping up the linear economy. If you think about how much material is being produced and wasted, this all adds up. And GDP, you could say, is a bedfellow of the linear economy. But the moment that you try to rethink of what success is and use multiple different frameworks, the donut model being one, where you look at social and environmental outcomes together, all of a sudden you get these new ideas of what success actually is. And waste counting actually is a negative element of economic performance. The second dimension, I think, of the donut model, which again is very relevant, is specifically with what's been happening in Lisbon within the network, is pushing the policymakers to think of the social when we think about the circular economy. I think there's constantly a bias when we talk about circularity more towards the economic and the environmental, but the social dimension is equally important. And that's what we saw in Lisbon, for example, when you push the co-benefits of a circular economy in terms of the distribution of meals through the web app, all of a sudden you have a social outcome that reverberates with current needs in the population that can also push your agenda in terms of circularity. So constantly pushing the social dimension to meet wider circularity needs in terms of environmental outcomes might be a good agenda. We also then had a presentation from three colleagues from Circular Economy, a very interesting organization that you all are very familiar with. And here we were exposed to calculations around finding what a circularity gap might be and how this can be calculated both at the national level, but also at the city level. And this allows for benchmarking, both internal benchmarking for the city to see how its circularity gap decreases, hopefully on a year-to-year basis, but also how it compares with other cities. And our speaker spoke about this healthy competition of reducing one's circularity gap. Finally, they went through a specific example looking at the building sector and analyzing the material flows going into it to see how these gaps can be reduced, for example, by the reuse of materials. And we had some excellent interventions from the floor, a question saying, yes, I'm in the construction industry, I want to use secondary materials, but always this legislation might not allow me to use them in terms of certification, if these are structurally sound or not. And these are things that we're going to come up with, I think, again today. I'm not sure if other colleagues who were present yesterday want to add a couple of further points, and we'll be more than happy to kind of reflect this. We have a bit of time before we go into the next section. If not, I will kind of constantly be monitoring the Q&A. What I would like to do is just to simply give you an overview of what we will be doing actually today, our second day. And again, can I just say that it's very difficult in 6 hours to squeeze in the work of 4.5 years. If you think about the outputs of, yes, it is 4 cities, but it's 4 cities working in 4 material streams, so 16 groups. I mean, this work has outstanding impacts in the local areas, which we cannot really do justice. But today, what we will do, if you think about it in again in 3 chunks, we'll initially have a presentation by Hans Christian Eberl, who is an EU policy officer, talking about the Green Deal and Horizon Europe, and specifically how new calls on the circular economy might meet some of the outcomes that we are addressing. We will then go into the next session, which is 3 work streams. We'll begin first with the electronic devices and hear from Hamburg, which was the lead city. We will then go into surplus wood and hear from Genoa, which was the lead city. And finally, the value-based partnerships work stream. And again, here we'll hear from a number of cities in the importance of building these networks and partnerships in order to, for example, build these new markets or designing these new markets that are so important. We'll finally finish the day with a conversation, a talk by Stefan Scheller on how to step up circularity. And this is very much on building up impact going forward. With that, let me just pass on to Mette again, who has a word also about the day's proceedings. Mette, over to you.
Thank you very much, Savas. I just want to highlight as well one of the two other points from yesterday, because Louise said that dialogue is important. And this is also what we conclude from all our work in the value chains, that organizing people around the table, so to speak, with all the people and the companies and the organizations and cities in the value chain, the dialogue is important in order to change the results and to change people's behavior and the design, the management of waste, etc. So the dialogue between all the different stakeholders is important. And another point is also from Ketty, which I think is very important. Ketty said yesterday that we need to go beyond waste. And much too often we see still that when we talk about circular economy, we talk about waste and how we can recycle, how we can reuse. But circular economy is really about redesigning the whole system, the whole economic system, how we can use and consume products in a completely different way, and also how products are designed so that they have a longer life and can be repaired and or remanufactured. So I think it's important to keep those in mind, that we need to go beyond waste when we talk about circular economy. So thank you. Over to you, Savas.
Thank you, Mette. And again here, I think when you look specifically around these networks and going through the entire value chain as a kind of a detective, and I think our colleagues from Circle City did that, understand the system in terms of, how it behaves. I think some of the work, and I think that, if you call it industry, has a lot of experience in that, was on the ethical dimensions of value chains, and the work done by a lot of development agencies really looking at how different parts of the system work together to break exactly the silos that you actually don't know how different parts of the system are operating, is one of the key dimensions. So I think there's a lot of cross-learning from that industry who's been doing this work for many, many years. Good. So perhaps let's now, if there are no questions, and by all means, please use the Q&A functionality. I'm monitoring that all the time. So if there are participants who have ideas or questions to put to the panelists or the speakers, please do use that functionality. Let's move on to our first presentation. And this is Hans Christian Ebbern, who is an EU policy officer. Hans Christian, I'm sure I've seen you. There you are. Very warm welcome. You'll be speaking about the Green Deal and Horizon Europe, and I will act as your slide sharer. So let me try the technology. Welcome, Hans Christian.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. Sound works for you?
It works very well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, then let's get started. Greetings from the outskirts of Brussels, a city that could be certainly more circular. I will start with the first slide on the policy context. If you change the slides, please. Why do I bore you with the policy context? I mean, you're all deep into this issue and you're working on specific material streams, but I want to talk about why we want circularity. Because we don't want circularity because we like circles. We want circularity because we want to achieve something. And I didn't have the time to listen to Katie yesterday, but we always agree on everything. So she probably already said a lot of things that I fully support. Circularity for me, that's a means. That's not that's a means to an end. That's not a goal in itself. It's rather an indicator whether things work well. What we want to achieve is we want to secure jobs, we want to save resources, we want to build resilience in the face of crisis, and we want to be climate neutral. We want to achieve a serious climate change mitigation impact. And that is what circularity can deliver. The bad thing is that, but I see it rather as a potential, is that the research on the climate change mitigation potential of the circular economy only started recently. But I mean, the first results that we have and the first reports that were produced in the recent, say, 4 years are very promising. So what is the policy context? And I really begin with the most important one, that's the Sustainable Development Goals. And Sustainable Development Goal 12 on sustainable consumption and production is maybe the most important one, because it includes many other things. And this is, even if it's not always obvious, what the Circular Economy Action Plan was built upon. And there's a line from the SDGs to the second Circular Economy Action Plan in 2020. What you also see is that a lot of work that the Commission did was on plastics. I will talk about that later, but that also has downsides. It's you can see that we can react to urgent topics, but this is also sort of dictated by popular demand and by politics to some extent, and it's not always systemic when we zoom in on one material stream. So again, Kat is absolutely right. We need to get away from the focus on, from an exclusive focus on waste. What is not on this list, there are a few other things that belong there. Circular economy should also, to the extent that it is sustainable, be bio-based. So there's also the revised bioeconomy strategy of 2018. There's the chemical strategy that belongs there to the framework, and also the industrial strategy that provides a setting, and also the SME strategy, and most importantly, and brand new digital strategy. So my approach to circularity is that this is meant to bring sustainability, recovering crisis resilience, and competitiveness together. And that is also that we always something that we always need to document when we write our success stories in the circular economy sector. So overarching goal, climate neutrality, climate change mitigation. Next slide, please. There you see that we had under Horizon Europe, under Horizon 2020, in the work program for 2020, a series of calls that fit well together, but that have a strong focus on specific material streams and that don't really have a territorial approach. So what you see there is, again, plastics, composite materials, multi-layer, also the material streams that are mentioned in the Circular Economy Action Plan, in both plans, plastics, textiles, furniture, then of course a focus on pollution, monitoring of pollution, and analyzing the origins of pollution. This includes pollution from nanoplastics, but what is missing there is a bit the systemic approach. These projects were mainly CSAs and research and innovation actions in a wide range, financial range from 2 to 20 million, with relatively low TRL levels. So this is still far away from the market. This was more research oriented. But then I did a little survey because DGRTD produced a report on products in the circular economy and policy recommendations from research and innovation. We published that in March 2020. And there we analyzed some FP6 and FP7 projects. And there we found out that a more territorial approach, working with cities and regions, was already there before Horizon 2020, and there are quite a few projects that work on circularity labs, city labs, and things like that. EU Innovate, Immute, Green Econet, in context, there are quite a few. They are promising, but there was no real follow-up, and there was no synthesis of the results. So that I would see as a deficit, and that I would see as one. Excuse me?
Go ahead, Hunter. That's fine.
Okay, I heard someone talking. That I would see as a deficit and as something that we need to work on, that we really harvest the results that we had in previous R&I programs. Next slide, please. And this was still something under Horizon 2020, but this is already more systemic in my opinion, because the call SC531 that I drafted is on a circular economy oriented product information management system. And it says complex products, so it can be electronics, can be anything. And it's really a full life cycle approach, because it says from cradle to cradle, and it really also redefines value chains. Because there, when we say cradle to cradle, then a value chain must include the sourcing, but it must also include remanufacturing, recycling, and it includes consumers. And very often we forget about the consumers when we define value chains. So that is something that I really look forward to. I'm really curious about what the results of this of these projects under this call will be. It's just starting. And the other one that has a very clear territorial approach is sort of the kickoff initiative for the CCRI, the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative. And there we managed to have a call for the demonstration of systemic solutions, territorial solutions, under the Green Deal call, which still belongs to Horizon 2020. And the budget for this is relatively huge. It's 60 million, and if I remember correctly, then the call was closed yesterday. So the evaluation will start now, evaluation of the bid. And this is the start of the CCRI. And to explain what this is about, I will just read out what's written on the tender portal. it says proposal funded under this topic will form part of the demonstration projects for the implementation of the European Commission Circular Cities and Regions initiative and must be carried out in close cooperation and coordination with it. The CCRI is part of the new Circular Economy Action Plan. Luckily, we managed to have the reference to the CCRI in the 2020 plan. And it aims to support the implementation of CE solutions at regional scale. And this leads already then to what we will be doing under Horizon Europe. So that would be the next slide. And there I think I should explain first what the structure is in Horizon Europe. Because I would say that the structure in the past under Horizon 20 was not always favorable to circular economy solutions or to integrated solutions, because it was a bit all over the place. And now we have a structure in Horizon Europe with 6 clusters. And for us, the most important one is the cluster on bioeconomy, natural resources, and environment. You see that it's a mix there. There's also the other bio part, food and agriculture, in this mix, but we had a coordination process with the other DGs, including DG Agri, that was very successful. So I think this is a whole new approach. And the cluster 6 aims at a transformative change and has a strong societal focus. So I fully agree with you that the circular economy should be seen as an integrated tool that targets societal, economic, and environmental issues. Everything under the overarching goal of the EU's climate objectives. Under cluster 6, we have several destinations, and there the one that I'm working on is circular economy and bioeconomy sectors. And with this co-creational approach, I think we managed to have a very ambitious program for the circular economy that covers territorial aspects, material streams aspects, but also theory and methodology. So also measuring the success, the progress, and the success of a circular economy is part of the Horizon Europe program. I said I'm working in cluster 6, but there's also cluster 4, which has a stronger industry focus. And our industry colleagues are trying to establish a territorial concept that's called circularity hubs. The basis for this was already in the Horizon 2020 work program. But I would say it's not fully developed yet, and they're cooperating with us, and we are trying to cluster the activities that we will have under the Circular Cities and Regions initiative with the Circularity Hub activities. These are topics such as deploying industrial urban symbiosis demonstrators for energy, water, industrial waste, and byproducts at regional scale. Solid waste management. So these are more technical or technology-oriented projects that they will fund. I see it as complementary to what we are doing. But in any case, we agreed that we would cluster and coordinate our activities, so there will be perfect synergy. Next slide, please. Our program, and there I'm really talking about my unit under Horizon Europe for the next 2 years. because we were writing the program for 4 years, but the first 2 years is what we have to negotiate now with member states, and what is going through an inter-service consultation now. And there we have the methodological part with indicators and value chain analysis and building of a life cycle LCA database. And then there's projects on material streams, and of course these material streams are the ones that are highlighted in the Circular Economy Action Plan, because these are the most important ones. So plastics, textiles, electronics, furniture, packaging, construction, etc. One that is missing there, sorry, that we identified as important, and that we will maybe focus on in the 23-24 work program, is the circularity in the clean energy sector, because we are facing now, I mean, we want to have a transition to green mobility and green energy, but that requires a huge input of resources, including critical raw materials that we don't have in Europe. And no one, until now, I found 2 interesting studies, quite recent ones, was talking about the circularity of the clean energy sector. So that is something that we have to target, or the energy transition will have detrimental impacts, or simply won't happen if we don't have the resources that we need. But that didn't make it in 21-22 work program. What you also see on this slide is it's only one line here, but in fact it's a huge program, sub-program, is the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative, the thing that we started with the Green Deal. And that I will talk about with the next slide. And there, so what are the elements of this CCRI? It is the projects that we launch under the Green Deal call. We would assume that 60 million would probably pay 5 projects, 5 decently sized, big enough projects. Then we just published a call for tender for the operation of the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative Coordination and Support Center, the CSO. What is this supposed to be? That's a framework contract. The call is open since the beginning of January until the 1st of March. And that's a framework contract, a service contract, that's supposed to allow the establishment of a sort of office, see it as a specialized consultancy. People that support cities and regions that want to launch projects, and also this support office will provide information, will dig out information from all the projects. They will keep everything together. The budget, if I remember correctly, is 6 million, which is quite big for such a bureau. So that should be sufficient to make this operational. And then there's CCRI in Horizon Europe, already in the first 2 years, and we will probably continue in the second part of the first half in 23-22. And that I didn't put on the slide because that's not official yet, because it's under negotiation. But what I can already tell you is that what we will do under Horizon Europe will connect to what we did in the past and what we now started to do under Horizon 2020. And it's several very diverse instruments that we are using there. There will be demo projects, I would assume, in the dimension of like 20 million. But there will also, again, a big chunk of money for project development assistance, the PDA, which will provide some light guidance. Then the Circular City Center, with the help of the EIB. The EIB will also be involved in a technical assistance facility. The idea is to catalyze investment, but of course we will provide money and put it directly into this technical assistance facility, and then we are running a cooperation, or we are planning to do that, to have a cooperation with the OECD, because they do have some expertise and some activities on circular cities and regions. This is more about knowledge sharing and learning and measuring circularity. And then there will, of course, also be procurement contracts for solving ad hoc problems. So that's a huge package that we will have for the CCRI. And solutions can be across all material streams that are mentioned in the Circular Economy Action Plan. But of course, we would like to see integrated solutions, because we want to see synergies. We want to see synergies between energy and water, between water and waste, between water and fertilizers, between plastics and electronics, between construction, housing, and mobility. This should all be part of the circularity approach, and we don't want standalone solutions. We want to see things that can be multiplied, that can be deployed and transferred to other territorial clusters. So I think that's a huge project, a huge initiative that we managed to launch, and we have it based in the Circular Economy Action Plan. So that's for us, this is a major step, and I think this is something that the cities will be able to build on. And I think the call that is open now for the coordination and support office is a key part, because they really will support you in your work, in your efforts and initiatives, and provide fresh ideas and help you exchange ideas. So I'm very optimistic, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this grow, because I really think the whole CCRI concept is a game changer. And what I also wanted to say is that all these other material stream projects and things that don't have an obvious territorial approach, they can become part of the CCRI through clustering or by showing a model character. So I think we found a concept that will guarantee that we don't have any information loss, that we don't have any frictions, and that we have a maximum of synergies. So that's my positive message for this morning to you, and I think I had my 20 minutes, and I will try to answer your questions. I hope you have many.
Hans Christian, thank you very much. And I think there's a lot to take in here. We have already some questions from the floor, and I will also invite some of our panelists who are on the screen if you want to engage with Hans Christian on some of the ideas. Perhaps I can start, Hans Christian, and at the beginning of your talk, you made a very interesting comment about how we can make the case for the circular economy, and specifically when it relates with climate mitigation, which on the books of a lot of policymakers is agenda number one. How do you think? Because every time I love speaking with EU policy officers, specifically when I see the codes of the different agendas. How do you push? What are some tactics of pushing a specific agenda like the circularity up on the importance of some of the EU Commission's work, and specifically when you have in your mantra the climate mitigation as your key target?
Well, I think we were already very successful with this, because circularity is very high on the agenda now. And one of the reasons is also that institutions such as Ellen MacArthur Foundation are supporting us, and there are some reports out now. And we could, of course, discuss the details. Not everything is 100% sharp, but we could almost reach our climate goals just by reducing or by introducing circularity in the main heavy industry sectors, say steel, cement, etc. So there's data that shows that circularity would completely reduce CO2 emissions from the heavy industry sectors. That's a magnitude. So I think we're getting there, but of course where it's difficult, and there, but there I would then try and focus on other things like resilience and involvement of civil society. I mean, where it's not the tangible is new business models. I mean, how do you even calculate the CO2 savings from share models, or from repair shops, etc. I mean, this is just starting. Of course, you can calculate something, but it doesn't look very impressive. It doesn't impress politicians, probably. But it has a huge social aspect. I see that in my village here in the outskirts of Brussels, and they have a repair cafe, and things like this are important, and people wanted this opens again because people go there, and now with the COVID crisis, it's not just very poor people that would go there. I think there's really also a movement, but there, I mean, we also need to demonstrate that this is not just for a good cause. This is also contributing to climate change mitigation. I mean, extend the lifetime of a product by 100%. Say your cell phone, throw it away a little later, if you can, unless premature obsolescence kicks in. You save time for sourcing of the resources, and you spread the environmental footprint of 2 years over 4 years. So you reduce it by half. It's not that simple, of course, but I mean, just to give you an idea, also these things make a change. But we still have to explain it. We have to get that message across. It's easier for heavy industries. It's the more we get into abstract concepts with civil society, the more difficult it gets. And I also see some very unfortunate things. I think it was in an OECD report about new business models related to waste prevention, and because they didn't have any other better examples, they were coming with Airbnb. And what's the thing? The taxi thing, the Uber. They were talking about Uber for dematerialization. I mean, without talking about the downsides, what this means for creating additional mobility, etc., and other things. So that I found extremely unfortunate. We need to get there, put this on a scientific basis, and find better examples.
Thank you, Hans Christian. And I think also your comment was very clear in the beginning that the climate mitigation potential in terms of just the accounting, we got in slightly late in the game, but how this can actually influence the importance of the sector, I think is vital. There are a couple of questions I'll pass on to Mette in a bit, but there was a question from the audience, which I guess again is more about this potential of agenda setting through building the stories and awareness, perhaps. Someone from Southeast Asia. Unfortunately, some of our beautiful beaches have become some of the world's biggest places where plastics come and pollute, and this is the kind of evidence out there. So, what from the circular projects, what can individuals, businesses, NGOs from those parts of the world do to contribute to your efforts?
Well, I would say we are talking about EU policy here, and sometimes people are asking me, why are you doing so much about plastics when we contribute only 10% to the ocean pollution? You punish the Europeans. Yeah, but that is nonsense in my opinion. Before I joined DGRTD, before I worked in the Envy Committee of the Parliament, but before that I was in DG Environment, and I was working on the RoHS Directive. That's restriction of hazardous substances in electronics. And what I saw there, even if we regulate only the European market, the EU market, what we are doing has a huge impact on other markets, because first of all, there's globalization, and people outside the EU sometimes want to export to the EU, and then they have to comply with our rules. And the other thing is, with this RoHS directive on electronics, we triggered a worldwide movement, and in the end you had similar legislation everywhere, from Canada to New Zealand to China, India, etc. So yes, we should accept and we should embrace that rule, that we are also a role model. We still prosper, and we should take that responsibility and take decisions that sometimes hurt, and I'm sure that others will follow. So if we talk about single-use plastics and marine pollution and beaches that are really tragically polluted, yes, even if these beaches are not in Europe, it's the right thing that we ban single-use plastics, that we look into alternative polymers, that we have a concerted approach and that we are targeting this. I mean, others will do the same.
Yeah, so it's kind of,
if this is
policy
successful.
innovation and leading on the policy front. I think it's a very good point.
Absolutely, and this is something where policy, traditional policy with regulations, etc., and research and innovation policy should work together as close as possible, and that was also a deficit in the past, and it is also logical because the cycles of review of legislation, sectoral legislation, and research and innovation cycles, they just don't fit together sometimes. So there we need more alignment. But I think what I see now is we are getting better and better there.
Thanks, Christian. Let's kind of also take another question from Mette.
Thank you very much, Hans Christian, for your presentation. It was very interesting. I have one question. You said that the Circular Cities and Regions initiatives would be a game changer. Would you be kind and elaborate a bit on that? And what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, first of all, it's a huge amount of money. And
good argument.
Certainly, I mean, money changes a lot. And the other thing is with the construction, that the EIB will be involved, that the OECD will be involved, that we have a dedicated support platform. The exchange of information will be accelerated. It will be so much easier for cities and regions to cooperate and to exchange ideas. I think this will facilitate the work immensely. If this is not enough, then I really give up. Then I'm extremely optimistic.
Hans Christian, perhaps I can build on that a bit, and I think it's kind of the legacy of city networks like the one in Force, where 4 cities came together. Also about the transition moving from Horizon 2020 to Horizon Europe. To what extent can the Commission build on some of these networks? So in one sense, rather than just putting the seeds, to what extent can it actually help at the other end of these project demonstrations to kind of furthering their impact?
Well, I would assume that people that were involved in the past in ambitious and innovative projects would apply for demonstration projects that we will be running in the future, and also we expect lots of interest in the project development assistance and in the CSO. So I don't think any information will be lost or we will be reinventing the wheel. So I think the task of the CSO is also to do some archaeological work, and to not only that, to connect people, and so
good.
I wouldn't worry. I would see this as a positive aspect.
Good. So it's an open invitation for further applications from our network cities.
Why not? Yeah.
Hans Christian, can I thank you very much for your insights. I hope you'll be able to stay if you can for some of our findings later on. But at this time, we'll take a short break. We will cut it to 5 minutes, and we will start at 10 o'clock Central European time for our first presentations on the material streams. So 5 minutes, everyone, and thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So welcome back, everyone. And we're now going to begin our next part of our day together, specifically looking at the different work streams. So 3 today, beginning with electronic waste, where the lead city was Hamburg. The way that we're going to be doing this for each of these work streams, we will first show a short film, then we will have a short presentation from the lead, in this case, Yannick Molt from Hamburg. And then finally, I will invite a short conversation with some additional speakers, in this case, Ute Müller, Heiko Arnold, and Laura Roberts. And we will be repeating this exactly in the same way for wood. But let's begin first with a film on electronic waste. If you could show this film now. Thank you. Can we possibly increase the volume?
Im Rahmen unseres Verkaufes haben wir festgestellt, dass die Nachfrage nach Elektrogeräten sehr hoch ist und haben dann seit 2017 in Zusammenarbeit mit dem Force-Projekt verschiedene Ansätze gehabt, um gerade bei den Elektrogeräten die Wiederverwendung nochmal ein Stück weit zu optimieren. Dazu haben wir verschiedene Ideen verfolgt. Vor allen Dingen haben wir festgestellt, dass doch auf dem Transportwege viele Sachen zu Bruch gehen. Wir haben glücklicherweise mit Unterstützung des Force-Projektes dann uns Wagen beschaffen können, die einen sanften Transport der Elektrogeräte garantieren und sind zu der Erkenntnis gekommen, das hilft ganz enorm, weil ein großer Teil der sonst hier ankommenden Geräte doch schon beim Transport zu Bruch gegangen ist und wir so doch noch eine ganze Menge mehr Geräte haben retten können.
We develop software in the field of waste management, and that brought us to the Force project because we wanted to do something with big data, not to make people buy things they do not need, but to make people use what they have even longer or sell it to give it a reuse. So that's why we connected eBay, and with our application cycle we download all data about electronic devices from eBay, used or new or defect, and analyze these data to find out which devices sell good, what is the average price. So help people to decide whether they should try to sell their used device or donate it, or if there's no demand, no market for it, even if it still works, bring it to a recycling yard to recycle the material. The data can also be used by NGOs and second-hand shops, repair shops, or organizations like Stielbruch to decide on which devices they should focus on when they decide which used devices are demanded at the market. And what we found out in the Force project was that often people need information about their device, the type of device, the model number of the device, to find out if they can sell it or not, or if they should recycle it.
Começámos o Repair Café aqui no FabLab Lisboa, porque o FabLab Lisboa já tem uma comunidade de maker que iria ser muito útil para reparar os objetos que nós nos propusemos fazer.
In Denmark, 3,000 large household appliances are wasted every day. People oftentimes decide not to repair their machines, even though they just have minor flaws. What we do is we have agreements with the city of Copenhagen, and then we go to the waste sites and we select the best units. We bring them here to our offices and our production room, and we assess them and we repair them, and then we make them clean and make them ready for a second life. And we have since 2017 been able to repair in the neighborhood of 5,000 large household appliances and give them a second life. On average, we save 227 kilos of CO2 for each product that we give a new life. And we save 55 kilos of iron equivalents or virgin natural resources. So every time we sell a unit or repair and give a unit a second life, we save CO2 again with our partners and with the buyers. Well, the main lesson is that you can actually combine a viable commercial business model with societal benefits, right? We have over the now almost 3 years been able to save 5,000 units from being wasted, which has resulted in CO2 reductions of more than 700 tons of CO2 equivalents. And at the same time, you know, we've been able to employ 8 people in our productions and sales and collection and everything. So we've been able to identify a viable commercial business model where we, in collaboration with the waste sites, are able to give products a second life.
All'interno del progetto FORCE abbiamo sviluppato pratiche di riutilizzo e coorganizzato 7 repair caffè in cui i nostri insegnanti e studenti hanno mostrato ai cittadini come riparare gli apparecchi elettronici non funzionanti. Abbiamo riscontrato molto interesse fra i cittadini per l'apprendimento di come riparare gli apparecchi elettronici. A tal fine abbiamo anche deciso di realizzare un video tutorial. Dalla nostra esperienza abbiamo imparato che però la comunicazione è essenziale per coinvolgere tutte le persone coinvolte, gli stakeholder. I repair caffè però non sono ancora molto noti a Genova. Il coinvolgimento di bravi tecnici con capacità di comunicazione sarebbe un elemento chiave per poter far sì che le cose, soprattutto tutto ciò che deve essere insegnato, arrivi in maniera facile alle persone, per naturalmente riutilizzo e riuso degli apparecchi elettronici. Per promuovere il repair caffè è necessario anche qualche investimento economico per sostenere i propri volontari che possono prendere in carico gli aspetti relativi all'organizzazione e alla gestione dei repair caffè.
Good. Thank you very much for this insightful video. The messaging, I think, is very clear. Can we now move on to a presentation by Yannick Molt?
Yeah, thank you, Savas. Can you see the slides?
Very well.
All right, thank you. So yeah, I'm calling from Hamburg. I'm representing the WEEE waste stream, or let's call it better, the resource stream of electrical and electronic devices, which is one of the most or fastest growing waste streams. And in Europe, less than 40% is recycled, not to speak of reuse. So in the presentation, I will complement to what we just saw in the video. The overall objective of this material stream was to identify the most effective approaches for increasing the reuse and the continued use of EEE. But besides, we also worked on the issues of how to collect more WEEE in order to reach the collection rates by the EU, and how to recycle strategic metals in a better way. And this presentation is divided into 3 parts. I will start and then give over the floor to our Rubis, which is our big industrial partner. And in the end, Ute from our software partner will also share some learnings. But let's start with the repair and reuse. We just saw in a video that Copenhagen, together with the Danish collective scheme and a professional resale company, developed and implemented a very, I think, impressive and pioneering cooperation to collect these large household appliances at 9 recycling stations in Copenhagen and also the surrounding. And they managed to collect here 136 tons of large household devices, of which 70% were repaired and resold via internet with half-a-year warranty, and the rest, the 30%, was harvested for spare parts, because spare parts are very expensive to have them newly. So this is a good source for enabling the reuse. Besides the large household appliances like washing machines and ovens, they also collected smaller electronic devices in their free cycling facilities in reuse centers. So what they did is they encouraged citizens to bring their still working devices and test them right at the collection point. And if the device is still working, they would give it a red dot and put it into a shelf where other interested citizens can just take these devices, take them home and keep on using them. And if they're not working well, they receive a red dot and they go directly to the recycling process. And the outcome is that around 16 to 25 tons of smaller electronic devices can be reused every year with this, system. So, and the items that are put back into the shelves, they're usually taken very quickly by the other citizens. So there's a large interest in keeping on using devices. And I think one main learning here is that it's important to actively involve the citizens and encourage them to also give their devices they not longer want to use, give it a second life, and make it a fun and purposeful activity. And to come back to Hamburg, what we just saw in the video, we saw the director of our subsidiary, Stielbruch, which is a second-hand shop. Stielbruch, in the project, we opened a new second-hand shop with a focus on second-hand EEE, and Stielbruch is receiving the goods that we are collecting at our recycling yards, and in their workshops they are tested on safety and functionality by our professionals and also resold with half-a-year warranty. And what we saw here is that there's a really high demand for second-hand EEE, especially tools and lamps are sold very quickly. We also aimed at enabling more repair in Hamburg by, for example, giving out spare parts from our collection to socioeconomic initiatives like repair cafes. But we found out very quickly that the legislation is hindering this process, since we are not allowed to hand out spare parts neither from our recycling yards nor from Stielbruch, because of, well, legal and warranty issues. So here we see still a big potential for enabling repair also in this socioeconomic initiatives. The approach in Genoa and Lisbon was more focused on repair cafes. Like we saw in the video, Genoa organized 7 repair cafes with almost 400 treated devices together with students and unemployed people. And I think one important learning here is that citizens are interested in learning how to fix it. I think that's an important learning. Also, Lisbon, they organized repair cafes on a regular basis, also including vulnerable people, and which was also received very positively from the citizens. Nevertheless, what you need for these repair cafes is are citizens and students or trained workers that are motivated to keep the repair cafes running, because it's a voluntary basis, and that's very, very important. And of course, the cafes need financial support for renting the premises, a good communication strategy, and of course, spare parts to use for their activities. And now let's have a look on the WEEE collection. What we already have here in Hamburg in place is a decentralized collection of electronics with these depot containers you can see on the photo. We're close to hit the 150th container, and this is a very important collection route for us, because we're already collecting more than 10% of the total collected WEEE in Hamburg via these containers. So it's very citizen or customer friendly because they're spread all over the city. And what we developed in this project is a new container, which in the event of fire, which is a problem arising more and more due to lithium-ion batteries, for example, can be handled easier. So it can be flooded by the fire brigade. And we hope to make this service even more attractive and to spread more containers into the city to collect even more. Copenhagen, for example, they also did some trials developing a new container, but yeah, they had some issues with thievery, like safety, and also the emptying process was not so successful. But we keep in touch and we have a very close knowledge exchange with Copenhagen about this. And again, I think we heard this during yesterday and today, the awareness raising on correct separation. We found that in Hamburg, there's still 1.7 kilogram of electronic devices in the residual waste. So there's a big potential there. And during public events, during a pop-up event on circular economy, we raised these issues of awareness raising and showing correct separation. Also Copenhagen did a survey amongst their citizens, and the outcome was that the citizens, they're really looking for longer lasting and durable products with low energy consumption. And also the repairers were asked in Copenhagen, and they are also voting for, we heard it, more screws and less glue, also cheaper spare parts too, and spare parts for everybody, not only for contract workshops. So yeah, these are the main learnings, and I will give over the floor to Aurubis.
Yeah, thanks, Yannick, for this insights in repair and reuse. Let's focus now on recycling. I'm Heiko Arnold, Chief Operations Officer at Aurubis. Aurubis, for those of you who do not know us, is a leading global provider of non-ferrous metals and one of the largest copper recyclers worldwide. Our head office is situated in Hamburg, Germany. We refine and recycle multiple metals, the biggest being copper, through use of various raw materials. We are proud to run one of the most eco-friendly and sustainable copper smelters worldwide. And as an expert in multi-metal recycling, we close the loop through recycling copper and other metals to make these strategic metals again available to society. We thereby reduce dependence on imports and lower the eco-footprint through an efficient recycling process. The sustainable use of natural resources, as we believe, is a central challenge nowadays, and it requires a strong cooperation along the value chain. Therefore, the project force is of a high strategic importance, not only to Aurubis, but also to Europe, because it is contributing to the development of a circular economy in Europe. And after that short introduction, I would like to hand over to Laura Robert, who had been the lead on behalf of Aurubis in the project force.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, within the force project, we carried out a recycling trial in cooperation with the City Cleansing Department Hamburg. And during this recycling trial, we analyzed the ecological and commercial parameters for the recycling of small electrical and electronic household devices. And yeah, in this project, we investigated manual versus mechanical dismantling of the devices by operation in our plant. And we found out that from a strictly ecological point of view, it would be best to receive the material as separated as possible. But we have also made advanced knowledge about the different type of devices. So, for example, about the composition of the devices, but also about the metal content in the different type of devices. And the recycling capability. So meaning that we were able to identify the biggest obstacles that arrived during the manual dismantling. And yeah, the project concluded that a manual dismantling resulted in a better eco footprint, but is because of the cost of the manual labor, it is not beneficial from ecological perspective. So yes, and to improve the recycling potential, it is, firstly, very important that we develop design for recycling, which is, fit for repair and recycling, and also to further improve the, the recycling technology, the automatic separation and sorting. And thirdly, it's important that we increase the percentage of recycling within Europe through incentives which foster the circular economy. And those findings show how important it is that all partners along the value chain cooperate and to find cross-sector solutions and to develop or further develop the recycling of secondary raw material. And yes, and therefore the fourth project is of high importance for Arubis because it addresses those future questions and so that we are able to develop our solutions together. Thank you. I hand over to Ute Müller.
Thank you, Laura. I would like to add, you've seen me in the film. I talked about Cycle, our platform with information about reuse and the market value of devices. Just go to www.cycle.de. You can change the whole website into English, so it's also impossible to find information in English there about the average market price of devices. We download all this data from eBay, and on Cycle, in the part which is open accessible, you can find always data about the last 90 days to be up to date with prices and sales success information. And also you find information about repair cafes and recycling yards, and also a connection to search for repair guides. But there's another part on Cycle. Yannick, would you please, and just 2 more clicks, thanks. There's another part on Cycle. This is in restricted access because we are gathering this data from eBay for more than 2 years now. And so we can provide interested parties with information about timelines for 2 years, about sales success of new, used, and also broken devices. We connected everything with brands, so you can see which brands sell better than other brands and things like that. This helps people who are involved in decision making or waste stream things to find out on which electric and electronic devices maybe they should focus with awareness campaigns and things like that. And also on that website you can find the photos and the data from the dismantling Laura referred to, because often people talk about electric waste but haven't seen it before, or haven't seen how it looks like if you dismantle a toaster or something like that. So if you are interested in if it's possible to sell your old video recorder or not, go to the open accessible website Cycle and search for your device. And if you are interested in this information about the statistics, just send an email to us, because it's not allowed to use these eBay data only for statistical purpose. That's why it's not open accessible. So we have to make sure you know what to do with these data. Thank you very much. So I hand back, I think, to Savas.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ute. And could I possibly ask the share to stop the screen so we can see all of our faces? Good. So thank you very much. And what a fascinating example here. And what I would say is the story is one of scaling. And I think it's very, very clear the way that this specific work stream has proven its model. In one sense, also it's proven its business model is very much at looking at the different scales of engagement, whether it's at the very local level with the repair cafes that we've seen in a number of cities, to then using some of these very innovative data capturing techniques that Ute was saying in terms of tapping into the price points within eBay to see to what extent is this product worthwhile keeping or recycling. And of course, then, scaling even further the role of municipal agencies when it's in the case, for example, of Copenhagen with the white appliances, where you can have a business model of a second life for some of these repaired machines. But what I found even more critical, and I think it's been underrepresented so far in our proceedings, is the role of industrial partners. And here the role of Arubis was fascinating. Yesterday we were talking a lot about how it's very difficult to compete. This was in the plastics work stream with other products coming from China when you're recreating new plastic products. But I think the potential of having an industrial partner, in this case on recycling metals, is that you can compete with other incumbents in the kind of in the cycle of the metals market. So I think all of these stories have fascinating transferability potential to other cities here on the call. I think you've really proven this model. Let me ask if our colleagues from Copenhagen, Birte, or Diogo from Lisbon, if you want to add any further thoughts in this discussion.
If I may add something.
Yes, Ilaria, hello.
Hello. There's a funny thing, as Yannick said before, for us in Genoa as well, lamps and lighting equipment were like the most requested items. And we had really many people bringing theirs for help in making them work again. But Repair Cafe is extremely interesting as well for communicating to citizens how to recognize WEEE and EE as well, because there's a lot of ignorance about the fact that anything working with a battery or with a plug is a EE. And if the citizens do not know how to correctly dispose of those items, they would end up in waste. And then it's no longer possible to take all the rare earths and interesting metals that we need. So I think communication is really an important aspect of the activity. Thank you.
And if I would like to second what Ilaria just said, the Repair Cafes are amazing awareness events. And also I like to focus in an important aspect. We started the Repair Cafes with only 5 municipal workers in the maker community, in the Fab Labs. But nowadays the municipal Repair Cafes worked with about 50 volunteers, citizen volunteers. And I think this shows the importance of fostering these citizen communities that can grow with very little support. Some equipment that we already have, some space that we will already have, and some time that our workers can give them to them. And then they spread by themselves. We then asked these volunteers to join us. They came there to repair their own things. They learned something, and then in the next Repair Cafe, they just said, hey, "Can I come here and repair some stuff from other people as well. And fostering these movements is really, really important. And sometimes we don't dedicate enough efforts to that part of the community. We only focus on our work and not on the citizens' work.
Very good point, Jörg. Perhaps I can put a question to all of the panelists from the floor. This is from Teresa Sessa, and it's a question that has come up a number of times during our conversations in the last 2 days. How do you solve the issues or obstacles related to the certification in order to place some of these items in the second-hand market for repaired electronic equipment? And who actually puts these second-hand devices on the market? Is it a distributor? Is it kind of through e-commerce? What is the best way of actually achieving that?
From Copenhagen, if I can say.
Yeah.
I think we experience that it's important that you have a diversity in how you deal with second-hand electronics. For example, if you're dealing with low economic devices, it's better for people to do their own repair and have this free swapping facilities on our recycling stations. But when you're dealing with more expensive products like white goods, it's the most important to have professional actors on board because they have trained staff and there's also a safety issue you need to address when you're dealing with more complex repairs. And I think on long-term basis, in order to commit the producers as well, that is acceptable to have repairs and second-hand sale of e-products, it is important to have professional repairs on board and also look into, for example, the Ceramic standard, which is just about to be approved in European countries at the moment. So what we learn is in order to repair good quality, you need good quality products right from the start because when people buy second-hand products, they still expect that they have a long life expectancy of, for example, white goods.
Good. Yannick, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something about the certification. In our case, it's like this, that we collect the electronics at our recycling yards, and at the moment, and we have to go into the conversation with the clients delivering these devices, and only if they tell us that this is still working and they want to give it a second life, we can take out these devices for being transported to Stielbruch for checking and on functionality and safety. So again, there are some issues with this moment of when the device becomes waste, at what moment, and at what moment we can still handle it. Because if it becomes waste, it's lost and we have to give it to the recycling path. But before that, we still have some options to intervene and take the devices for being repaired. And Stielbruch is then reselling them with a warranty. They are a certified pre-treatment facility and are allowed to do so.
Thank you very much, Yannick, and thank you all to all the panelists for these fascinating insights. Your work is not finished yet. There's 2 very interesting questions on the Q&A, and I would ask you to please answer this because we're running out of time and we need to move on to our second material stream of the day, which is wood. In this case, the city of Genoa was the lead. We will again see a short video, a short film, and then move on to a presentation. If you could increase the volume again.
I rifiuti in legno a Genova hanno un alto tasso di raccolta che oggi supera addirittura l'85%. La maggior parte di questi rifiuti viene riciclata in pannelli. Un problema di questa filiera è legato al valore della filiera stessa, che non è distribuito lungo tutta la catena del valore, e questo in realtà non è in linea con i principi dell'economia circolare. Questo è il motivo per cui abbiamo deciso che la nostra sfida era in particolare quella di prevenire la produzione dei rifiuti, ma anche quella di stimolare l'upcycling per generare nuovi prodotti di valore superiore. Partendo dall'identificazione della Value Chain Based Partnership e dal coinvolgimento degli stakeholders, abbiamo sviluppato due azioni principali. Una prima azione di realizzazione di una web app chiamata Refresh, per raccogliere tutte le attività di riparazione, riutilizzo e riprogettazione che sono già attive sul territorio della città di Genova, ed è diventata una sorta di pagine gialle del riutilizzo.
In conjunction with the laboratory of industrial chemistry of the University of Genoa and the society TICAS, we developed the work in the wood waste for the FORCE project. The objective of the work was the production of some bioacids that are very interesting raw materials that could be used in chemistry in the substitution of the consumption of oil and such materials. The achievement of results was interesting. We obtained a good amount of conversion, and this can be used in the future for the production of new materials starting from wood waste. Of course, this needs a lot of investment, but this is one way open for the future.
TICAS, in collaborazione con l'Università di Genova, in particolare con il Dipartimento di Chimica e Chimica Industriale, ha ideato, organizzato e gestito il corso internazionale in e-learning su bioeconomia circolare, filiera del legno e del cibo, che si è tenuto a Genova nella settimana dal 16 al 20 novembre scorso. La rete di stakeholder locali, nazionali, europei, che si è stata messa a punto nell'ambito del progetto FORCE, ha permesso di avere una squadra di docenti interdisciplinari, sia di tipo accademico sia industriali. Il grosso interesse per il corso è stato dimostrato dal numero di adesioni o di ricevute. In particolare abbiamo ricevuto più di 150 richieste provenienti da 10 Stati membri.
Hi, my name is Carlos and I recently attended the Circular Bioeconomy course held by the University of Genoa and TICAS. This course covered in a holistic way different aspects of the circular bioeconomy by gathering experts which showed their different perspectives in the topic.
Repair Café Lisboa started in Fab Lab Lisbon because we have a community of makers that was very useful to start it. So when we began, we started with a set of 5 just, and the community started evolving. And what happened is nowadays we have almost 40 volunteers, depending on the event and depending on what you are going to repair. So we have people that repairs wood, just in wood, like carpenters and stuff like that. We also have electricians and people that work with electronics. And we also have people just came to help. And many of the people that came here to repair, they stayed then as a repairer.
Im Rahmen von FORCE haben wir 2 Versuche gestartet mit dem Ziel, mehr Biomasse zu erfassen. Diese 2 Versuche haben uns gezeigt, dass es, obwohl es zeit- und kostenaufwendig ist, eine schöne Ansätze sind für die Kreislaufwirtschaft, um das Holz wieder in die Kreisläufe einzuschließen. Bei diesen beiden Versuchen haben wir festgestellt, dass, obwohl diese zeit- und kostenaufwendig sind, es gute Instrumente sind, um das Holz in den Kreislauf wieder einzuschließen.
This terrace is 400 square meters large. It is part of one of the activities that we have conducted in the FORCE project. The idea was that we could use battens and boards from the recycling stations to build this new terrace. What we saw in this project was that, first of all, the quality of the wood that is handed into the recycling stations is a very mixed quality. different thicknesses and different lengths and so on. So you have to spend time on sorting and packing the wood at the recycling stations to make it suitable for use in new constructions. And when we have done that in this context, we also saw that in the wood and in the batten and boards there were a lot of nails and screws that was virtually almost impossible to remove. Even though we spent resources on removing all the nails and screws, all the visible ones, the experience at the company Sagerwoods that we had to use to have all the wood heat treated to make the terrace weather resistant. When they started working with the tree and planing the battens and the boards, new nails and screws appeared. So in fact the result was that we destroyed several of their tools. Our learning is that it was difficult to use wood from the recycling stations for a terrace. But to sum up, you can say that in practice we didn't have enough quantities to build 400 square meters. So as a result we can say today that 40% of the terrace is built out of reused wood and 60% is virgin wood.
Thank you very much, and over to Stefania for the presentation from Genoa.
Well, good morning to everyone. If I have to be honest, I would like to leave the floor to Ilaria. I only present myself and I come you back in the last slide. And so I leave the floor to Ilaria Marzoli from AMU. I am of the Municipality of Genoa, Resilient Manager and lead of this stream. So Ilaria, floor is yours.
Thank you, Stefania. Hello, everyone. We will talk about our wood waste and wood stream. Actually, as our general manager said in the video, we were starting from a very high recycling rate of this item, let's say wood. We had at the beginning of the project 71% recycling rate of wood. And why did we choose wood and wood waste? Right, because we wanted to test the principle of circular economy and the cascading use of wood in Genoa, to try to keep as much as possible the value of wood and wood waste on our territory, because the main quantities of recycled wood goes to another region to be then recycled for panel board industry or composting. So what did we do? We started assessing the situation, considering all the stakeholders involved in the wood and wood waste streams. We actually had many. We picked up two, which are post-consumer and parks and gardens wood waste, already existing streams to be re-engineered together with the stakeholders that we had identified. And then we also focused on two new streams, which are brushwood and driftwood. It was extremely important, and we were lucky to have like a participative approach, because when you develop a project like FORCE, which is long and extremely challenging, then unexpected events may happen, which change also, which make you change the activities that you had planned to do. Actually, we had to work in we had to perform our urban lab to test the changes that we had introduced in the already existing streams and to test the new ones in a defined area of the city, which represent 10% of local population, which is extremely useful to then replicate an upscaling at city level. But then we had a tragedy, Morandi Bridge collapse. It was like extremely difficult to overcome this event. We also lost 2 colleagues, and our major premises were under the bridge, as well as Ecolegno, who's one of the partners of Force. His premises were only under the bridge. Then we had the challenges concerning legislation, because we had 2 changes in legislation, one regarding end-of-waste procedure as public bodies involved in giving end-of-waste, let's say, permits, and another concerning green waste, which is one of the streams that we chose. So having a very strong partnership, including all cross-cutting stakeholders like public bodies and professionals, or specific stakeholders like associations or small companies, helped us to overcome those big challenges. We'll keep it short. We just show some of the activities that we did, the main ones. As again, the general manager was talking about in the video, let's say we didn't create a network, but we put together all the stakeholders involved in the reuse, because the value of wood and wood waste is really low. So what can we work on? We can work on prevention and upcycling, which are in the cascading of the butterfly scheme of Ellen MacArthur scheme. And so what did we do? We put all those actors around the table, and we invited them in our premises. We showed them our thoughts and learned from them. So we managed to open our first reuse center in October this year, and to involve in the network already other 5 reuse centers already existing. And what did we do to promote this network and to allow citizens know about the chances of reuse and prevention? We realized a web app, Refresh, which is open source and easily replicable from all other cities, in which citizens can find indication on how to restore their items. There's also a WEEE area. Sorry, I just connect to the first presentation, to the previous presentation. And well, citizens can easily find a way to prevent waste and to reuse or to give or to swap their items. Then, as for parks and gardens, as I was saying, we were willing to treat them as waste, but then the legislation changed and it was possible to consider them non-waste. So we decided to work on a GIS system to help municipalities and green management to better set up, let's say, cutting campaigns of trees in the city. Then for the new stream, driftwood, we actually were willing to see if it was possible to plan collection campaigns and to see if it was like the recycling of the collected wood could help pay, let's say, the intervention, which are very difficult because the shores sometimes are difficult to be reached by the volunteers or by the trucks. And actually it showed that it's unfortunately not viable unless someone is helping covering the costs of those campaigns. As for brushwood, which is non-waste, so it's another challenge because as Katie said yesterday and Mette stressed today as well, we should go beyond waste, but in this project we had to work with waste, we decided to try this non-waste stream because it involved different stakeholders and it's very close to local communities, and hydrogeological risk prevention is extremely important, and also because a lot of the driftwood that we had to collect actually came from the rivers and woods which weren't correctly managed. So we tested the cleaning of a wood area, actually a 7,000 square meters area, which was cleaned. It's shown in the brushwood picture, and school students helped us. And in the end, in this cleaned area, those students will cultivate vineyards, and there will be the municipality will build a park for the residents. Then we also focused on upcycling. And this was performed by Active Cells. You've seen Giancarlo Dondo interview in the video, and TICAS as well as the University of Genoa laboratories. It was extremely interesting, the results of this activity, but what has to be stressed here is that it was a pilot activity. And so there's a strong need of help for implementing at industrial level all those interesting findings. We don't have any picture about the activity, which was extremely important of the market application analysis that TICAS performed. It's anyhow in the learnings, we wanted to stress it at least here. So what came out from our activities, the value of prevention. And the value of prevention should be recognized as well at EU level, as now to go beyond waste, we have to rate as well prevention. Otherwise, it's real bad to say, but as a waste management company, I can get more rewards if I recycle more, so I go through waste, instead of having good marks, getting good marks for prevention, and so having a real rate on prevention. Then education, of course, is important, and especially the mindset and lifestyle of citizens who have to pay more for the furniture, which is no longer waste, but to be no longer waste, it has to be refurbished by creative carpenters, and so would cost more in the end. Then there's a strong need in investment in research and development, as I was saying, to upscale what is tested in laboratories. And then symbiosis platforms are extremely interesting to help potential markets for secondary resources. Actually, TICAS focused on 20 case studies, so it's real an interesting learning. As for the other cities, as Annemette was saying, they sorted wood waste and they reused it as well. But unfortunately, there are many problems related to reuse of wood without a real good selection. And I would say in all cities, we tested the social involvement. As a matter of fact, the Surpluse, our network of reuse centers, the Surpluse furniture is made with recycled wood by a social enterprise. I will leave the city representatives then after our presentation the floor to add more details. Sorry, I tried to keep it short, but we did so many things. And I leave the floor to Stefania now.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilaria. Well, just few words, because we are now at the end of this big project. at the end of this wonderful network among us as a cities, as a partner. And we realized also at the end of this 4 year of experiences, a deliverable that is public, that dials exactly on what is replicable for the cities and what is also viable for upscaling also. And we gain more or less, and we cluster these opportunities under these 4 themes, because are the themes that could act as lock-in and lock-out in every context. So under the governance and the environment, the social aspects that are so crucial, so important, and also they are redundant in this in these talks today and also yesterday, and definitely the part that is related to economics. In a sense, while the attendees are reading what we wrote and we try to cluster together, it is essential to understand that circularity and circular economy starts 4 years ago dealing with waste exactly in this project. And during the project activities, the shift paradigm on circularity is also in our mindset, our position, our ability as a governance, local government representative for us dials with a more mature position on this theme. We embed circular economy in our resilience strategy that we dial and also that we release at the end of 2019. And this was absolutely a new perspective, a new approach. And also we embed donuts economy in our action planning. So how to put on the ground circularity and also the other viable actions on urban regeneration, how to connect circularities with sustainable connection, how to reconnect the people, and also viable more and more networking, because the cities has to dialogue with the citizen, but also with the private sectors, with the association, with all the enabling actors that could boost circularity and circular economy opportunity. On the other hand, as a city, we have to absolutely facilitate, and we are doing this with a lot of effort, new opportunities for research and development, in piloting testing in our territory, in finding the spaces where the people could also meet together with new ideas could be spread. And we are going to work on this exactly in releasing a circular economy hub in the next years. And this is essential because it is the only way also to connect the young generation with the elderly one, because the elderly are the memory, the experience, they know the value of what is a disposable material prior to become waste. And the younger are more sensitive now regarding environment, sustainability. And so the linear economy definitely will die. And we now are passing through our circularity in also our processes, also internal in the city. And I am really proud to participate in this project, because for us means as a legacy that now we are ready to sign the Circular City Declaration of the EU that is promoted by ICLEI and also the other member of the networking. We dialed on this yesterday. And definitely the second ring, so the smaller ring of the donuts economy in regards circular economy, it is embedded in our planning. So for us, the legacy of the project is especially raise awareness and more ability to reshape the future. I think that this could be something that could be replicable for the other cities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefania, and thank you, Ilaria. If I could kindly ask you to stop sharing the screen. And perhaps we can also hear from Anne-Mette in Copenhagen with any additional comments in this specific material stream.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I would like to add about using the wood in a professional context. We have seen that it's a bit difficult to use the wood handed in at our recycling stations. So I think, in fact, you can say it's possible, but I think it will be in a smaller scale. So if you want to establish a larger flow with more amounts, you have to move on and look at how to reuse some of the wood from the demolition projects in the city and construction sites and so on. In fact, we saw with the terrace I mentioned in the video that because the quality of the wood from recycling stations were too bad,
we managed to have contact to one of the demolition projects in the city where an old school, the ceiling was removed, and the wood from the ceilings were of a much more uniform quality. So in fact, we were able to use these woods, So reuse from recycling, wood from recycling stations is difficult, I think.
Thank you, Ahmed. And I'm just waiting to see if there are any questions from the floor. But perhaps one question that comes to mind is to what extent, and I think the work that Ilaria, you showed is quite interesting, in actually looking at the existing value chain of what happens with wood waste in the local economy, and the fact that there is an existing business model. It's probably been around for decades on the production of panels from wood waste, and that has been a proven business case, which a lot of our other material stream have not had the kind of the opportunity to kind of explore. But I think there's a tension here, and to what extent you mentioned the misincentives that exist from some of this waste going into panel production versus reuse, where the circularity component could be improved. So how do you influence existing value chains that do cover some type of circularity, but that you're trying to kind of improve further?
Well, we didn't want to actually stop panel board industry, which is a great case of recycling, and especially for the let's say, difficult to be recycled wood that Annemette was referring to is perfect, because they take all the nails out, all the paintings and everything, and then it become again a material which can be used. So it's extremely important, and I think it's great. What we were willing to do was to keep value at local level, was helping people understand that an already used items which I do not need anymore, but can be used by someone else and it's in good state, or maybe becomes even better if a designer intervenes and costs a little more. You have to understand the value of the fact that we didn't cut any new tree for building this furniture, or we didn't use any new panel board from recycling. So it's a mentality change, and especially the upcycling was extremely interesting, because not all the green waste has to go to composting, but can go to industry. The problem is you need money to upscale the pilots you do in lab.
Thank you. We have another couple of questions, and I'm happy that Nigel has brought this debate. Again, I think, Nigel, you also intervened yesterday with this question, and it's something similar that Lara Ann Blasberg is asking. How can we actually effectively evaluate the quality and consistency of the wood so that it can be rated of a specific standard to, for example, use in construction? And Nigel speaks of that in terms of risk. Although there's a lot of goodwill and a lot of progressive construction companies that want to procure this material, what is the best mechanism of certifying some of these projects, and what is the right level of government or governance to kind of actually facilitate this process of certification?
Sorry, may I answer again?
Of course, Hilaria.
Oh, yeah, okay. It was mentioned something extremely important, which is a certification, because the panel board industry is such a good, best practice, exactly because it certificates what comes out of the recycling of wood. So as for the reused items like furniture, I think you do not need actually a certification, because it's not that if I do not need an item anymore, it becomes polluting because it went through the waste management company. And actually, I'm always complaining about end-of-waste procedure, but I must say that in this case for furniture, we have the best end-of-waste procedure, as we can just look at an item and say, okay, it's in great state, so it's no longer waste, and that's the end. What you need certification for is mainly if you reuse wood in an industrial way. Also because when you, let's say, upcycle the green waste, then you take into a lab and you want to extract chemicals from it. You go through very many procedures which are already, let's say, you have to follow rules which prevent pollution. I mean, it's not that in a lab, I can wash stuff and then open the tub and let the water out. So in a way, there's already, I think what we are not missing are rules, because we have already so many. But certification, yes, you have to always to look after certifications.
And Nigel is actually saying that it's beyond certification. The point of risk is who takes the risk if something happens with some of this reused material. Perhaps we can continue this conversation on the Q&A, because we need to move forward. Ilaria, Stefan, and all of the colleagues on this specific work stream, thank you very much for your insights. So we're now moving to our last work stream, which is very much a cross-cutting one. And this is the value chain-based partnerships. We will again look at a short video, and then we'll follow up with a short presentation.
The basic concept in the Forza project is that we've set up a series of partnerships, because we would like to make sure that everyone in the partnership knows what's happening to their product or their material further down the line in the value chain. For example, we know that a designer of a packaging, plastic packaging, do not always know what happens in the recycling phase of that plastic packaging. So by setting up a partnership where the different stakeholders in the value chain can exchange information about what happens, it can actually improve the recycling as well as the design. Well, the aim has been to improve the recycling of the materials or design a product in a way that it can be reused.
When we were invited to participate in this project, one of our goals was to achieve more knowledge about soft plastics or foils. But what we found out was that the value chain in such a process is very important, because it's very important to know what happened in the whole chain. Yeah, one of our key findings was to understand the value chain in such a process where we work with post-consumer from the collection to the final products. It's very important to understand the whole chain. If I should recommend anything to other cities in the project, it's very important to have the whole value chain involved in the whole process.
During the course of the FORCE project, the potential of value chain partnerships for reducing waste became increasingly clear. We believe that a new approach to the municipal waste management sector and an innovative governance model for circular cities is necessary. Two key factors from the FORCE project help to achieve successful value chain partnerships. First, installing an overarching partnership of all involved stakeholders. And second, value chain management is necessary to organize effective cooperation. Thus, circular cities can become an essential strategy for achieving our common goal of climate change mitigation in Europe.
In the FORCE project, I was responsible for the exploitation and dissemination of the project results. Together with a lot of partners from the 4 cities, we identified stakeholders that wanted to have cooperation and partnerships for circular economy, And we brought them together by organizing workshops in every city. Together with the partners from the 4 cities, we identified stakeholders who might be interested in the participation of cooperation for circular economy, and we organized workshops for them to meet and discuss circular economy in their cities.
The value chain-based partnership has been the core of our activities. During the project, we realized over 134 interviews involving public bodies, companies, associations and professionals. From these activities, we learned that there is a strong need of end-of-waste procedures to unlock the potential of business which is feasible despite the low value of both wood and wood waste. There is also a strong request of local governance, because a strong local governance could help connect stakeholders and facilitate relations and opportunities.
Since 2014-15 roughly, we started with the development of the FORCE project, which is dealing with circular economy, waste reduction, waste recycling. And of course we implemented all necessary partners from Hamburg, ministries, waste companies and also production companies, data companies, and found a very good team working together from Hamburg with our partners in Copenhagen, which were thankfully the coordinator of the attempt and the project, and with Genova and with Lisbon. So we can see that the FORCE project was for Hamburg one of the very important steps into international cooperation in this circular economy.
Thank you very much again for this very clear narrative. Jörg Nieling, who is a professor of urban planning at Hafen City University in Hamburg, over to you. Jörg, we cannot hear you.
Sorry. Good morning, everybody. I would like to add some further thoughts on value chain partnerships, based partnerships, and especially with regard to circular cities. I would like to mention that this presentation was prepared together with Donald and Yvonne. Just a second. If we look nowadays at the development in Europe, we can see that urban areas have been growing for decades now, and the perspective is that by 2050 about 70% of people in Europe will live in cities. So, and that has already been the topic of the whole final conference, waste management is really a hot topic for cities and will become even more important. And against this background, I think it's really important what Hans Christian mentioned this morning, that integrated solutions will become more and more important to achieve more closed loop management in the waste sector. This not only for climate change, but also for managing the challenges that cities are facing nowadays and already in the future. So in the FORCE project, and I think the city presentations have shown this very inspiring in a very impressive way. There have been many solutions for making value chain partnerships sort of lively. The question was, how can we build value chain-based partnerships in city to foster circular economy in the waste management and beyond? And I think there have been so many inspiring and impressive examples also this morning that show which aspects make this lively. And what became clear, and this will be a bit the idea of this short presentation, is that it's always a mix. It's a mix of technical innovation, of service innovation, and on the other side, of process innovations. So that means governance questions and others, which I will show a bit more. For example, just what Ilaria and Stefania showed in their presentation, I think, made this connection very clear between the technical service innovations and the processes. So what we achieved in the project, I think, was to make this value chain partnership more lively, to give it really an idea where to put energy, where to get into the circle actually, and how to make impact out of this. And it became clear that the additional part are the business models, that it always needs in the long run, it needs in perspective to reach business models to get to those solutions actually, which are new products, just what we also heard from Copenhagen with the terrace wood is also a good example. On the one side, how to be innovative, and on the other side, how to deal with restrictions or difficulties. And what Ilaria just said, the certification, for example, is also one of those very good examples how to actually come over, maybe to solve those restrictions. I would like to stick to some key drivers for value chain-based partnerships that are lessons learned we can draw out of the FORCE ambitions. That is, for on one hand, that public authorities need to be key drivers. I think all 4 cities have shown this very clearly, how important it is that the city administration really goes forward, tries to sort of try new innovations, new solutions, but also look into new ways to tackle problems. It's really a shift of thought sometimes that is needed. Get out of old routines of administrative work, especially in the waste sector. I think it's a bit of change of mindset that is necessary. And I think our partners in the project have really shown this, that they are capable to this. The other thing is to cooperate with existing local networks. And this became also in the examples very clear how important it is to connect, to cooperate, but also, like Genova just said, to listen into the networks, to really approach them and try to find out what are they thinking, what are their needs, what are their sort of challenges they are tackling, and how can we cooperate. Citizen engagement, the other topic, in many projects became very clear that, for example, volunteers in repair cafes, but also Fab City, Fab Labs, massively sort of managed by volunteers and citizenship impulses. So that is, I think, one of the big partners in the value chain partnership, but it's not easy to really motivate and get them into the process. There are really efforts necessary to get citizen engagement become a driver. Municipal funding for circular economy can be, and quite often is, an important resource, especially in the first phase, in the innovation phase. Later, when it gets to a business model, it's not necessary to stay in the process with public money, but in the first phase, as an incentive, as a motivator, it can be important. And the overall goal certainly is to create win-win situations for the partners. If this doesn't work, the partners won't cooperate, and to build business models so that value chain partnerships on the one hand can become a game changer. A bit what Hans Christian also said, that he says cities and regions, circular cities and regions might become the game changer. I think value chain partnerships are a core essential element of this. And then in the future, hopefully a game changer for circular cities. Thanks very much.
Jörg, thank you very much. And again, if I could kindly ask you to stop sharing the screen. We have a number of colleagues, and if you could possibly switch on your cameras to invite in the discussion. Thomas Jacob from International Projects, Yvonne Stresius, who you also saw in the video, Donald Alimi, and Mette Skovgaard, of course, in the city of Copenhagen. Perhaps we can start with Thomas for any additional comments.
Thank you. We just following my short part in the video that, of course, as a city, we are quite keen to develop into a circular city or to attempt to go in this direction. And just a direct answer and then comment to Jörg's few points. On the one hand, we are quite clear that we have this scientific, practical results. We have to do something. So this is a result which can be proved by figures and amounts of waste we are producing every day. But on the other hand, we have a political consequence doing that. And setting this as an administration, giving it as advice to our politicians, and then follow political, we have to follow their concerns. What is the role of government, the role of state? Is it like we always say there's a technical problem, a fact problem, so the role of the state and the government has to increase to set more and more strict limits, or the permanent call for give me funding? If it's not economic, give me some millions or billions like we see today. So what is the role of the state, which is going to be redefined in another way, not from the old Prussian or historical, the landlord or the king, but with a participatory approach, which is the role. And this is a part of change, and there we are quite happy to see that we can extract from the huge amount of results, outcomes from FORCE and from other projects, and to extract how does it fit into our picture of society in the future, which is different in all the partners we have seen it. In Germany, it's different to Copenhagen or to Italy or to Portugal. And so this transfer to extract is now the hard work which will come at the next step for us.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And over to Yvonne.
Yes, thank you, Savas. Thank you, Jörg, for the presentation. And thank you, Thomas, for your thoughts. I think cities need all the help they can get to transfer linear to circular economy, and therefore the value chain partnerships are a good tool to do that, because I think you need as well a top-down approach as a bottom-up approach, and together it could help to foster circular economy. So what do I mean for that? The top-down process is, in my opinion, policy and legislation and the regulations that could support circular economy. And the bottom-up approach is that you raise awareness to change the mindset, maybe to change lifestyles, and to have a demand and a supply for secondary raw material or reuse of products. So to bring this together and to foster participation, you could use the value chain partnerships. And as we have heard it several times today, it needs, sorry, Thomas, funding, but it needs also facilitation and management to do that. And another important step, then I'm done with that, you have to include the companies. And companies, well, need to see a real benefit to participate. So we need incentives for companies to be part of it. Otherwise, they would go for business as usual because they earn money with that. So that's it from my side.
Thank you, Yvonne. And again, for the participants who are online, please feel free to ask any questions on the role of value-based partnerships in the Q&A function. Let's hear from Donald Alimi.
Yes, thank you, Savas. Very much in line with what was mentioned before by our colleagues here in the panel, I would like just to make one maybe conclusion from my side and from my experience in the FORCE project, dealing with analysis and our major focus into looking into the cooperation practices and processes that have been deployed and following the value chain concept to engage different stakeholders. So this was useful, of course, to develop and implement the different solutions. So one main or key learning from my perspective and from our side is that this tool, as Yvonne mentioned before, is a very important tool that can be and should be deployed from cities, from other cities also, as well from the FORCE partner cities in the future. And of course, it needs to be from our results. It's absolutely necessary that it needs to be strongly supported also by policy frameworks and as well as governance approaches that enable and institutionalize the cooperation and the co-creation at the local level. So directly with the relevant stakeholders and as well as citizens, as was mentioned before in the presentation. So cities can deploy this tool and also to identify what challenges are there for for the circular economy practice, just as mentioned, I think very extensively during these 2 days of the project. And so the most important thing afterwards is to put more efforts to overcome these challenges, also by engaging policymakers at the innovation processes. So having also more this multi-level governance perspective beyond this vertical dialogue with the local stakeholders in each territory where the model or this tool that the FORCE project has developed should be implemented.
Thank you, Donald. And finally, Meta, I think you want to come in with a comment on Yvonne's ideas. Meta?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. It's because an observation from plastics is that we saw that once the general public, the audience, I mean the media, started talking about the big problem of plastics, we also realized that there's a huge interest among companies to participate in a partnership on how to deal with the recycling of plastics. And I think Yvonne said that we need funding to facilitate these partnerships, but I think if you really find, the key thing about partnerships is that you need to find an area where everybody has a natural interest in cooperating. And if all the companies in the value chain and the cities for that matter have a natural interest in participating and cooperating about a certain subject, a lot of things is given by itself. Of course, there may be some need for funding for specific trials, tests, etc. But as such, the point is that everybody should have a natural. You'd only cooperate if you have a specific problem or challenge you want to solve that is of interest for everybody in the value chain. So thank you.
Thank you, Meta. Perhaps we can return, and I think there is also a question on the Q&A, which I think Thomas has volunteered to answer, but maybe not. This is me reading into it. But I think, if we think of what Hans Christian said earlier in the day, specifically in terms of how some of these projects are structured, and this also relates to what Jörg was saying. The moment that you bring this ideas in an integrated way, cross-sectorial, then all of a sudden new opportunities emerge. I mean, for some of us, it's already difficult to create value chains for a specific material stream. But the moment that you put these together, and this is what Hans Christian was saying with the clusters idea, that they want to get innovations from energy and water together, or the way that the FORCE project was structured so that each city deals with 4 material streams, opportunities arise. I mean, the one question would be, beyond the kind of, the waste management, which is the obvious link here in terms of, a similarity in the value chain across the different materials, what other opportunities emerged when you put these different value chains together? And again, this is an open question to our participating cities. Jörg, perhaps you want to come into this.
Yeah, thanks. That's really, I think, a decisive question what you mentioned, because if we can achieve that the value chain partnership approach is really integrated into other sectoral areas, like, for example, the building sector, that what was already mentioned, certification, things like this are necessary to include those ideas into other sectors, or the mobility sector also. There are many sectors that are, in a way, partner sectors of the waste management in this integrated way. And they have to get into the boat, actually. And that is really a challenge. And I would also very much agree what Mette has just said, that it's necessary to really try to find those natural interests of all partners. It's not only between administration and businesses, where it's absolutely important, and also for citizens, but it's also between the different sectors of administration or of public life. So we have to find out what are interests that could be sort of solved, integrated from other sectors like building industry. For example, if a builder or construction enterprise can get a better image by reducing CO2, by integrating reused materials, that can be an interest for them Also, maybe if requirements in the future increase in this regard, so that would also be a sort of even an economic interest of them, not only an image interest. Those relationships, relationship management, it is in a way that is necessary, I think is really important. And FORCE might have shown with these different streams that were tackled parallelly, how important or also how interesting it can be to look over the borders, to really try to get to understand what others are doing and how it can be connected. I think that's really a good result or very inspiring result of the FORCE cooperation.
Jörg, thank you very much. Thomas, do you want to come in to this discussion?
Yeah, one point I want to highlight is the cities do not create value chains, but we can screw some factors which make it more efficient or less efficient. And we see this waste management in some countries where free landfill is allowed, so the landscape is filled with rubbish. And as soon as we have some regulative aspects where we forbid something, make some things more expensive or cheaper, then this is our main screw to work on that and to influence this value chain factors. When we discussed about textiles, so it's very hard to influence the Bangladesh textile production. But if we talk about poisonous material depositing in landfills in Europe, that in our countries, in our cities, it's much easier for us to influence. And it's absolutely okay if a company wants to earn money. That's the basic of our society, and that's why I'm paid from the tax. So we have to be aware and be clear that our influence is on the political level as a city, region, nation level, the one to change conditions to allow the companies to benefit from that by, in parallel, being more careful with the future in general, not to destroy our basic for the life. And so this spread of this material inflow was for us quite precious to see where it's more important, where it's easier, where are some screws to work as the city. And I totally agree that we have to include in these experiments the companies as well as the city utilities and the governments. Again, the work for us will start now, how to transfer FORCE into actions, which is a long issue, and we should start and build on FORCE results.
Thank you, Thomas. I wish we had more time. There's a lot that you said there that is also controversial and up for more discussion. But we need to move on to the next and final part of our day. Can I thank again all of our panelists from the last work stream, the value chain-based partnerships. And I will move to our final session, a presentation by Stefan Scheller, who is a senior consultant at the Collaboration Center for Sustainable Consumption and Production, with very much a message about stepping up on circularity and the declaration on the circular city. Stefan, over to you.
Thanks a lot. I hope you can see my screen.
Very well.
Great. Yes, so actually, I think a lot of the things I was planning to say are already very well taken. But first of all, a big congratulations to the whole FORCE team for organizing this really insightful event, which I enjoyed so far a lot. And I think I'm just shortening a bit of my part because you all did a really great job in taking up a lot of issues. And I was really happy to see that you also covered a lot of social dimensions already, that I tried to include at least some of what I find most important ones here in the slides. Maybe some aspects we haven't talked about too much, maybe the narratives and values part. I think for us, also working in all these areas, it's quite common in our bubble that everybody knows about circular economy. I think this is, although it has become quite a prominent political concept, which is extremely great, we are still far from having like a mainstream opinion and a mainstream breakthrough in understanding these concepts. And I think especially if you look to companies, this is a really important point, that you have the ability to think circular, because we have really learned in the last decades to think differently. And this is rather groundbreaking, and we shouldn't take this for granted, and we need to really work on this. And the same for skills and education. That's a really big one, because I hardly know any school, any university, whatever vocational training institution that is really covering circular economy to date extensively. And this is actually what we need right now. So we need to have people that plan production and supply chains that are based on secondary raw materials. It's not like you have your virgin materials and they are available whenever you want to. That may be quite a different process in the future. And the same is true for all kinds of other industries. And I think the same is also true if we look to the corporation space, which we have really greatly covered, and I'm quite grateful for that. The whole interaction of civil society, of governmental organizations, of companies, there's really a blurring line between them. And you see that especially in the circular economy domain, if you think of recycling and prolonging the useful life of products, they get more and more out of these silos, and there's much more integration happening right now. And another big thing, and probably the last to mention here, would be the lifestyles part. We, for example, maybe we could call it a supply chain, value-based supply chain partnership. We are running a multi-stakeholder platform on how do we cope with the consumer side of circular packaging solutions, mainly looking on plastics, but not only. And it's, as you said, it's a really insightful thing to do, to have all stakeholders on board and to really look how do consumers behave on certain aspects, and especially if we aim to change routines, if we change routines from single-use plastic to going into reusable systems. That's a big thing in the routine change of daily lives. And it's quite important that you have looking on from different angles on this and join all your competences here. And of course, it's just being said, it's about bringing all these parts together, ideally in a joint circular vision. And this is that was one of the big questions we had in the recent years, to say, so what's the ideal starting point? And I think Jörg Knieling just perfectly said it. So we also identified that the regional authorities, they really should be in the driving seat here. And I'm also delighted to hear that I think yesterday you seem to have already mentioned or covered the Circular Cities Declaration. Yes, it's a very nice approach by ICLEI. And when they came around saying, oh, we have this idea of this declaration, we instantly were sure that this is the right approach. I'm not even able to list all the partners that are now, have joined in developing this and supporting this, because there's not enough space. But the really good news is it's across Europe. We have, I think, to date about 37 signatories. And yeah, I've just heard from the 4 cities that are some more to join, hopefully. And for me especially, I want to have some more in Germany. We only have Freiburg so far, and there's a lot of space for improvement. I don't know if you have looked further into it, what it applies. There's a lot of reading, so I made it a little bit shorter for you. There's some critical point that are, if you look at it, like all of them are not too challenging, but they all together are a really, really good starting point in also addressing the whole social aspect area that I've just mentioned. So it's about circular economy goals and strategies. It's about raising awareness in very different stakeholder groups and parts of the society. It's engaging local stakeholders. It's embedding circularity principles, for example, in your infrastructure planning and asset management, etc. Of course, using like public procurement. This is something we were talking about for years. This is really something that needs to happen because it's a really great lever to have. Bringing incentives for circular social behavior, enabling local regulatory framework, like take whatever you can. We've just had this example of dumping regulation of waste. This is extremely helpful. It's a big driver. Collaborate with your national governments, and of course, like the usual monitoring and reporting on progress. And this for us, it's a learning platform. This really is about sharing insights and all the 4 cities, they have really learned a lot, and they are, of course, mostly welcome, to join this group and share among this group and beyond, and continue their learning path. And with this, I'm done. Thank you a lot.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And again, if I could kindly ask you to stop sharing so we can see everyone on the screen. And for those of you who are able to participate in the discussion, if I could ask you to turn on your camera so I can pick on you. If you don't, switch off your camera so I know not to pick on you. But perhaps I'd like to kind of come back to some of the ideas that you mentioned there, Stefan, and also reflecting on the 2 days proceedings, the difference between influencing behavioral change and influencing mindset change. And I think we've seen a lot of examples in the FORCE project of behavioral change, and the experiments that Copenhagen did with the plastic collection, whether you kind of, changes a bit of the kind of, tweak the rule of what is allowed in the bag, and all of a sudden 30% of plastics is increased. But I think less was said in terms of mindset change. And here, this is, one of your slides. You mentioned, how do you, in that sense, we change narratives and values. And I think for systemic change, if you follow that practice, because it is a practice, is if you want transformative change, you need to work at the mindset or value level. So what examples do you think from our partnering cities do you think, worked best, whether it's campaigning of really shifting people's minds in terms of the linear economy or in terms of the circular economy?
I don't have present like all the examples, but I feel like what we have also just discussed, whenever you have tangible benefits, whenever, like in Hamburg, you can buy really good electronics at a low price, that's a really good example. That's the best message you have. So we used to have these sustainability discussions that were more framed in terms of you must and you must not. And these were really not the motivating discussions we had. And with the circular economy, we really have like the big opportunity that this is such a positive vision. It's a vision that also connects to a lot of social aspects. It's a vision that very well connects even to some kind of business growth, that some people see very often contradicting to any kind of sustainability path. And if we could use the very same as motivator for all kinds of groups, they, as we said, they all have their different interests, but they can very well connect to this vision of circular economy in some way or the other. The repair initiatives, they just want to keep stuff in the loop, and they don't have the economic interest so much. And that also works very well. It's really about providing everybody with what is most important to them. And I think we have seen some really great examples on here.
Good. I'm seeing if there are any questions related from the floor on our discussion, and we have another couple of minutes. Perhaps, Thomas, I can push you a bit more on your previous comment in terms of to what extent can we influence a value chain on the other side, right? So, for example, in Indonesia, which a lot of the times is what happens at the end of some of our linear value chains. And I say that because if we tie this back to a conversation around changing people's mindsets, at least in the development industry, there's been very effective success in influencing people's minds when you know about the ethical dimensions of a value chain, even if it's very far away from your city. And as you know, Oxfam has been a proponent of this, and they've been carrying out this banging for 20 years with great effect, and really changing people's mindsets about a specific corporation. I'm not sure to what extent this is relevant and in your ideas. And that we can actually bring that part into the equation to change people's behaviors.
On the one hand, the cities themselves are actors in the game. So we are buying something, we are building something, we are providing something. Is it street lighting or is it just asphalt on our roads? And so we are one of the customers in the game. And what we can do, well, we can experiment and we can, well, play the card if we got this not being in this economical pressure as a poor person is, which has to save the last cent to buy a radio or something, electronic device. People living from public subsidies, they, well, first care about survival. And so for them, it's much more far away to think about these issues about circular economy. But we, as a city, we are actors. We are building schools, fire brigades. We are buying police cars of vehicles. So on this part, we can start stepping into this value chain, as private households do already. My neighbor is buying baby clothes, of course, in a second-hand shop, because they have to buy all 6 months new clothes. And so that's an economical issue. And there's no bad habit to buy some used baby clothes. But as long as we have a bad habit buying a used car, you are buying a second-hand car, which is not first-hand. As long as you have this habit in mind, so we are still on this material consumption phase. And so marketing is a big issue, I think. So one of my main complaint is that second-hand implies it's second quality. Second, not first. First is better than second. And this is still in the mind setting. Very often we have to be aware that mind setting is a question of influence. And we can learn from companies. We can learn from companies which are quite successful selling cars, which is the other. And we can discuss with mind setting what go by bike. But the industry shows us every day how it works with mind setting. Vorsprung durch Technik, fun with driving, and so on. Yes, and so this is marketing, mind setting chamber.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Let's go to Mette in Copenhagen.
Thank you, Savas. I want I would like to agree with Thomas in the sense that we as cities, we should set some requirements when we buy things, so that we have some kind of ethical standards for when we buy things, that there should be no child labor, there should be no environmental deterioration, etc. And it is our obligation to do that when we buy stuff. But having said that, I also think it's important not to leave the customers left on the platform, so to speak, because often as a private consumer, it's very difficult for me to set requirements in my purchase if I'm buying goods. I have a selection of the goods on the shelf, so to speak, but of course I can choose with my feet, but it's often very difficult for me as a small individual in the whole system to set some requirements. And I think that's why it's so important that citizens, the cities, they are front runners and dare to take action and choose set requirements in their public purchasing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mette. I'm not sure if Yvonne, Donald, or Jörg, you want to add some comments in this discussion. Jörg.
Yeah, I would like to add one point regarding again the role of the cities. Mette has just mentioned that cities can become front runners also from the side of consumer in the market. But I would also think, maybe a bit adding to Thomas' question, which role a city can have to bring forward value chain partnerships. And I think for a partnership doesn't work without a partnership management in a way. So from my point of view, it should be the role of the cities to take over this management in a first phase and try to get it running on its own later. But it needs in the first step, like Copenhagen did, and Mette is, I think, really a great example for this. If you go forward with this new idea gets into the system and people can be convinced that it makes sense to work together, because normally the producer, the designer, all the guys in the value chain are not used to cooperate in this way. And it really needs a promoter in the first phase to make this happen. And there the cities have really a strong role. And it's the question, who in the cities does it? Which department is going for this? Is it the waste department? Is it the environmental department? And that is certainly a question every city has to think about and find ways for this.
Yvonne, yes.
Yeah, one idea could be that because cities are still the ones who are dealing with the waste. So if you want to see waste as a resource, you need the infrastructure for collecting and sorting and all this stuff. And this could be a task for the cities to provide this infrastructure, because we need a stable supply of secondary raw material, which is not the case in the moment on all material streams. So this could be a task where cities could step in and help to provide infrastructure that is needed.
Thank you, Yvonne. I think having these conversations is vital, and I think it's important that even if this first phase of this forced partnership is coming to this end, the role of municipalities should be active, rather than just saying, we've proven that there is a business case and we want incumbent players to come and take our positions. The role of this championing, municipality to make sure that these partnerships become, as Jörg says, part of the system, is a key part, and hopefully the resources are there for municipalities to keep playing that role. Can I thank all of the participants in this specific stream? Stefan, thank you very much for your conversation. And I'd now like to finally pass back the microphone to Mette for some closing remarks on this conference. Mette, over to you. We cannot hear you.
Thank you very much, Savas. I was just checking some background information, that's all.
Sorry.
And first of all, I would like to say thank you very much to all our speakers this morning. And it has been really interesting to hear both our own conclusions, of course, but also from the European Commission and from Stefan Schaller on the circular initiatives in cities. And I think that it's very interesting to hear from the European Commission that cities will have a role in the future. That actually they will have an important role in the future for defining the new policies on circular economy. And so there is something there for us to take upon us and put on our shoulders to carry on and work with. And especially what Hans Christian Erbel said about the Circular Cities and Region Initiative, that seems to be a very important action from the European Commission, and also a funding opportunity for us that we definitely need to look into. Hans Christian Erbel also said that we ought to remember the consumers in the value chains, and perhaps that's there's a tendency there to look only at the companies and the perhaps the cities and research institutions, and then somehow we forget the consumers somewhere along the line. So that's a good point there to take away as well. And as Stefan Schaller said, for example, sometimes it may it would need to change the behavior of consumers if you introduce a reuse system. So there's some behavioral change that could be implied here. In FORSA, we also realize that there is a lot of social aspects. So there's significant social aspects that we would like to highlight, and an important takeaway from this project. I'm not sure that from the outset of this project when we wrote the application to the European Commission, that we realized how much it had, or the social impacts of this project, and how much it was. But we realized that all the repair cafes that has a lot of impact on the awareness raising. We can see that the recovered meals from the Lisboa web app and you know, from the surplus food that would save there. We see that the wood waste also gives possibilities for some creative work. So there's a good chunk of social impacts of the project that we perhaps not had fully realized from the outset of the project, and that's very interesting and something that we will need to consider as well further on, or in our work in the cities. And then I would like to say that the value chain approach is still a new approach to many cities as well as to many companies. So there are still some learnings to do on how to cooperate and to get to know each other and know what are the possibilities of cooperating in the value chain. What can we actually achieve if we cooperate? And I think also a learning from the project is that if you want to have a successful partnership, of course it needs to be facilitated. Someone needs to hold all the threads and steer us through the work. And it could be cities. We do have some options to do that, but it doesn't have to be cities. But we are you know, a reasonable stakeholder in this. And also, I'll say, Yvonne said at the very last that we need some stable flow of secondary raw materials. And that was what I had to check. And it's, I think it's with the Waste Framework Directive that states that the cities will have to collect 10 different waste streams from this year, I think. So therefore, it's there is an interesting, when all the 27 European states start collecting 10 different waste streams, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. So I think it's been a very good afternoon, good morning here, and afternoon yesterday, and I hope also that the audience, you have enjoyed the presentations and the findings of the project, and not less that you perhaps get some ideas on how you want to take these findings on in your work, and how you can use them to have new ideas and new projects for further on. So that is our main ambition, I would say, that what we have done here can inspire you in some way to carry on your work. So from our side, we would like to say thank you very much to you, the audience, for staying with us in these difficult times. It's a different format. It's perhaps you don't get the good meals, you don't get the nice city visits, etc., and you don't get to meet other people in person. But I hope that we have managed to make it interesting for you to stay on and listen to us despite all the formats. And I would also like to say thank you very much to Savas for steering us through this 2 days. You've been really great and managed to keep the time as we've done, but also to have some good discussions on with the audience, and managed to sum up. So thank you very much for all your efforts. It's been really great to have you on board on this. And so with these words, I would just like to say thank you very much from Copenhagen. And over to you, Savas. Thank you.
Thank you, Mette. Just kind of a small note to say that on the chat, you will find all of the relevant links to follow the projects and the findings. This is all about transferability. So if you're a city that is listening as part of our participants here, please make sure to read this material and reach out to the participating cities. It's been fascinating for me to be involved in this. I've just learned, and this was a question that Stefan said, are there educational courses? Apparently there is one. Hafen City has created the course on circularity. So that's another kind of opportunity to learn more. But again, thank you very much for your participation in all of these discussions.